Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to the final day of our 9th World Summit on Arts and Culture, Safeguarding Artistic Freedom. And I'm delighted and I'm very happy to welcome our Minister for Culture, Parisa Liljestrand. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Dear delegates of the 9th World Summit of the International Federation of Arts Councils and Cultural Agencies. The past days, the importance of protecting artistic freedom has been emphasized, highlighted, and discussed. You have approached this subject by discussing rights, responsibilities, and practices of artistic freedom. Wise experiences have been shared, and we have taken inspiration from each other. Artistic freedom is not only a fundamental pillar of sound cultural policy, it is also a crucial aspect of democracy, freedom of expression, and human rights. Society and its development are reflected through art and culture. Russia's unprovoked and large-scale aggression against Ukraine is primarily a threat to human beings. War has devastated effects on society. It tears families apart. It destroys homes, dreams, and hope. War creates a sense of loss and despair. But Russia's war is also a threat to the culture and cultural heritage of Ukraine. And thus, in turn, it is a threat to the culture and cultural heritage in Europe. In the midst of destruction, the power of art and culture provides glimpses of hope. We see it in Ukraine, where theaters and operas continue to operate in the middle of an ongoing war. We see it when Ukrainian artists in exile showcase both talent and strong messages. And we see it all over the world when artists, writers, dancers, actors, and museums stand up in solidarity with victims in Russia's war against Ukraine. The strength and resilience that the Ukrainian people has shown in the past year is a proof of the importance of shared history, traditions, and culture in society. It is what gives a community the sense of identity and the sense of purpose. When bombs are falling and soldiers are marching, that insight serves as a beacon of light. To make our dreams and beliefs come true, we must be prepared to work hard. In these difficult times, it is important, maybe more important than ever, to continue our never-ending struggle for democracy and for freedom. We must ensure a vibrant cultural life, flourishing cultural and creative industries, as well as the safety and responsible working conditions for cultural professionals. And not least, let us never take artistic freedom for granted. The fight for freedom is, unfortunately, a fight that must be won by every generation. As this conference is approaching its end, let me leave you with an important message. Carry on the conversations we have taken part in. Carry on the wisdom and the experiences with you, because this dialogue must never be silenced. I would like to thank each and every one of you for participating in this dialogue, for sharing, for listening and learning, and to reconnect with the opening ceremony of the World Summit and also with the Astrid Lindgren Memorial Award. Let us share Astrid Lindgren's and Laurie Halse Anderson's conviction that only the best is good enough for our children and for our future. That there is a future if we strive together towards a more humane and dignified existence for everyone, young and old. A conviction that there is more that unites us than that separates people. Artistic freedom is fundamental for a crucial endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister for Culture, Parisa Liljestrand. And now I want to give the floor to my Mexican dear friend, Mr. Pablo Raphael, writer, diplomat, and organizer of the amazing Mondia cult in Mexico City last October. He is going to, well, wrap up and just tell what happened the last days, and he's going to do it in Spanish. So if you didn't get your headphones, those of you who can't understand Spanish, please do so now. So Pablo, my dear friend, the floor is yours.
Hello to everyone. I would like to say that I'm speaking Spanish for two reasons. First, because it's very difficult to do a resume in many issues in very few time. I will try to do it in 5 minutes. It's not going to be possible, I feel that. And the second reason is because to talk about Quijotes, I prefer to do it in the language of Cervantes.
Culture is a long conversation. This definition that has been attributed to José Teixeira Covello summarized the whole secret of artistic freedom. In a world that is facing polycrisis, as Simone Brod called this era we're living in, the fact of remaining silent and refusing to be silent, this really embodies a real challenge of artistic freedom. In this very extended conversation we had yesterday, we saw the need for context and to be self-aware regarding the reality that we're facing. In this sense, it seems to be that in face of the environmental catastrophe and censorship and manipulation, the metadata dictatorship and the control in silos and watertight departments, optimism, yes, optimism becomes a form of rebellion. Yesterday, we saw a number of assessments of the relationship between rights and responsibilities, the right to express the truth and the public responsibility to protect people, between making our voice heard in the public space and to preserve the right to privacy, between exercising freedom of expression and being politically respectful, between the freedom of movement and the responsibility to protect the environment, between the obligations that societies have in face of climate change and the needs that the states have or the communities have to survive, between the 5 dominant languages in the world and the internet, considering that 6,995 languages spoken in the planet that are not on the internet, between innovation and tradition, between the relationship that are built from the peripheries towards the centers, and between the global south and north. It was said that if we want to have the balance that allow us to survive the contradictions, that implies in strengthening rights, which in turn means increasing the responsibilities. Please keep in mind, don't be silent and don't let yourself be silenced. Mark Bamuti said that artists are the politicians of our time, and the politicians that have become performers and the artists have become in politicians, or are the ones who actually perform real politics. In other words, in contrast to the politics of spectacles that deceive society, art recreates the world to reinvent that reality. It's a matter of subverting the pyramid to make way to the collective voice, but it's also about the need to expand the definition of who is an artist and what is art in order to expand the rights and to redistribute cultural wealth amongst those who have been systematically excluded and silenced. Creative freedom has a profound relationship with democracy. Yesterday, they said that to give voice to the minorities is the key to safeguard democracy. So I congratulate the government for opening the doors to the Ibero-American communities in this country. We saw the need to understand the context in which we find ourselves in order to end existing gaps. The definition of artistic freedom is universal, but it must be rooted in a specific context. That is why the question came up, which is a puya, whether we should rewrite politically correct Dostoevsky. The canceling culture tends to build a dangerous new puritanism regarding the issues and concerns of our time. Nobody would have said that the people are at risk at becoming our own big brothers. The digital revolution was discussed from different perspectives. Human beings use the instruments and tools that we have at hand. Just like Warhol revolutionized pop art with the airbrush, digital tools are there to change, once again, the history of art. Regarding AI, it's about subjecting the technique to the spirit so that it should be useful for the construction of social intelligence and human intelligence, which is so important when we face challenges as pressing as the clock going against climate change. Now, we have other tools in the digital revolution that may help us in a world that have lost its tactile ability, but at the same time, it can provide personalized tool, access to knowledge, chains of collaboration, sufficient information, technical support, and platforms that are able to map and make visible the violations against artistic freedom, and to generate legal framework that translate into local realities of protection or that allow measuring the impact of censorship. There's a lot to be learned from the models used by the journalists to defend the freedom of expression, and that they can be taken to a much quieter terrain regarding the cancellation of artists for reasons of censorship and discrimination for reasons as different as a defense of sexual diversity, languages, skin color, living conditions, poverty or religion. Actually, opposite to that, as Vicencia said, that it's about creating the conditions to have a decent life and that everybody can live in dignity from their work, guaranteeing, as Alfonso said yesterday in his presentation, the right to be a professional and to opt to live from that, ensuring success for as many people as possible. There was a talk regarding the right to imagination and the power of culture to transform society, and also the relationship between art and nature and the power that artists have in order to propose alternatives where others fail when they're thinking about a sustainable future. To conclude, and I would like to stick my spoon here right now, which is my microphone, to tell you a story. We've all heard in different ways how art demonstrated that it is a fantastic instrument for public health. We've heard often during the pandemic and after the pandemic that the pandemic has been a method for public health, but perhaps we shouldn't see it as only as a palliative, but culture can also be a public instrument for preventive health. The challenge is to work with a mechanism that guarantee a priori this creative freedom. And now let me tell you a story. Actually, this happens in Tijuana. It's perhaps the busiest border in the world with 80,000 crossings per day from citizens that go from Mexico to San Diego and vice versa. And there's a place called La Granja, which is run by a visual artist called Raúl Cárdenas. More than 10 years ago, Raúl stopped visiting the fairs and galleries to buy the house of the pozolero. The pozolero I have to explain pozole in Mexico is kind of a Mexican soup made with boiled corn kernels. And the pozolero was a person who was dedicated to boil their victims in acid. So Raúl bought the house of this drug dealer, which is part of the psychopaths that control the country. And he decided to create La Granja, which is actually a music school. It's a center for community kitchen. And other than that, he also has a school of new technologies. Raúl realized that his project was a success when he realized that they had stolen everything from him. There were no musical instruments. They took all the kitchen utensils. And all the different devices had also been stolen. And why did he realize that his project had been a success due to that? Because that afternoon, he got a call from somebody that said, "Hello, you don't know who I am, but I know perfectly well who you are. And let me tell you, I'm the one who's the boss who decides who lives and dies in Tijuana. And I know who stole your stuff. And if you wish, we can make them give them back. And you can tell me what else to do." That means that they could eliminate that person. He said, no, sir, the only one thing I want is to get my stuff back for the school. And he said, no, I can actually get your stuff back, but I can get rid of the person who stole them. And I said, no, if you get my stuff back, that's enough for me. And then he said, okay, no worries. This afternoon, you get your stuff back. You get your kitchen utensil, the musical instruments, and the computers. And he said, okay, we'll see you. Thank you very much. But wait a minute. I want to know, why are you doing this? And he said, because I told you, I am the one who decides who lives and dies in Tijuana. What I didn't tell you is that my daughter studies music in your school, and I don't want my daughter to be like me. So what happened? This broke the spiral that connects violence and organized crime from generation to generation. And Raúl wanted to guarantee not only the existence of the school, but the creative freedom of its students. So at that point in time, to change his life completely, I believe that this is what it's all about. Do not be silent. Do not silence, but continue having this long, extended conversation. In a city of sailors like Stockholm, it's very nice to say that culture is as important as water, and creative freedom is the voice that drives our oars. Thank you very much.